Shalom, and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of our weekly Rashi study class, Megillat Esther, with Rabbi Rebecca Schatz.
All right, let's get started. Happy Monday. We are going to be looking at chapter 3, verse 6. So as a few of us were recognizing as we were schmoozing before class started, there's no Rashi on this verse, but it's a very involved verse. So there will be what to say about it, I have no doubt, but there's no actual Rashi. I gave you a Steinsaltz and I gave you a piece from the Talmud, but others will have other commentaries around the room, and I'm sure we'll have our own personal commentaries to share as well. Does someone want to read the verse for us and translate it? Yeah, Rebecca, great.
Vayivez be'enav lishloach yad b'Mordechai levado ki higidu lo et am Mordechai. Vayivakesh Haman lahashmid et kol haYehudim asher b'chol malchut Achashverosh am Mordechai.
Great.
So this says that he disdained. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't favorable in his eyes. He disdained to send out his hand or lay his hand on Mordechai alone, because they told him about Mordechai's people, and Haman. And is it Haman? Haman requested to do away with all the Jews that were in Ahasuerus' kingdom, the people of Mordechai.
Okay, great. Thoughts, comments, questions? Yeah, Rick. Just use the microphone for me.
By you guys, can we translate that?
It does mean disdain. I actually looked it up. Yeah, according to Sefaria at least. The root means to disdain or to abhor. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to share my screen, but Sorry, Diego. Here you go. Yeah, that was at least the way that Sefaria translated it when I looked it up in its form on Sefaria in the text itself.
Do you got something?
Despise, mock at, treat with contempt.
Yeah, there we go.
I don't think this verse makes sense. And in particular, the beginning of the verse.
Yeah.
So if we go back to the previous verse.
Yeah.
So what did Haman do? The Chema, which was translated, was filled with rage.
Yeah.
It was burning. He was really angry. Now, think for a second about the Yavez. What do you despise, hold in contempt, or disdain? A person that you are angry with, or something that's happened.
Sure.
But here, we're convinced by the sentence structure that what he despised was simply only attacking Mordechai. You wouldn't say that he despised. He didn't want to. He regretted the thought of doing. He did. To me, at least, clearly what's happening here is that he really wants to harm Mordechai. And the way he wants to harm Mordechai is by harming his family, right? Think about, the movies that you see where the bad guys, when they want to really hurt the good guy, right, what do? They don't hurt him, they attack his family. So he wants to attack the family of Mordechai and all that. So for me, at least, and having no evidence whatsoever, I'm convinced this is another example of, in the editing process of the book, that there were two somewhat competing stories or versions of it. One which was that Haman despised Mordecai, wanted to kill Mordecai, and one was the one I just described, that he wanted to get at his family, and they left the word in there. I could read you the translations because Alter says he scorned to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had told him who Mordecai's people were, and Haman sought to destroy all the Jews, Mordecai's people who were in all of Ahasuerus' kingdom. And Alter says the resolution of genocide reflects the fairy tale vehicle of the narrative and could scarcely represent an actual option of policy in the Persian Empire known for its toleration of minorities, which is the contrary of what Diane's going to read, that Benji Siegel says. Alter is saying that this is a comedy. This is a fairy tale. And Benji says no.
Benji says the book of Esther has become very serious, a process that will continue in the coming chapters. Commentators who label this book a comedy or a burlesque seem to have read selectively.
So the interesting thing, first of all, I also agree that it's a very complicated verse. If we look at the sentence structure, Vayivez be'enav, the word that makes it the most confusing is be'enav. So it's possible, and this goes back to a point that actually, Diane, you made about last week's verse, that it's hard for us to know who in whose eyes, right? So is he disdained in his eyes, meaning is Mordecai disdained in Haman's eyes? And then the verse continues, which doesn't necessarily help your point, Larry, but I wonder if it's just an easier way of understanding just simply the syntax of the verse. That's not how it's translated. So I'm not trying to say that is correct, but it would be an easier way of us understanding why that word be'enav is there. Be'enav can also, it's seen in the Torah all over the place, right? She was seen to be good in his eyes, or the opposite, right? She was hated in his eyes. It's usually a she. But the idea of in your eyes or in his eyes could be just a personal thing, right? This is how he felt versus how everybody else felt. But it still makes it extremely confusing. And the other thing that I'll say to your point, Larry, is that the way that now we are talking about all Jews and not just one does, I think, work with Benji Siegel's explanation much more, because it becomes this very intense, we would probably call it anti-Semitic, because we know who they're talking about, text where now it's about all rather than just one. Not to say that just one wouldn't be anti-Semitic, but now we're talking about a whole group of people, and that is much more intense than if we're just talking about one guy. And I don't know if that meant that he went after his family or really it was the people or et cetera, but it does make it a much more intense, I'm going to use the word reality of this text, of this story than we've had before, where it was kind of like, I really hated him, but now it's, I hate his people and I hate where he comes from. Rachel.
That this verse just reminded me of, all the group dynamic training I had when I was teaching about identifying steps in developing discrimination and segregation, which was something every teacher, at least where I taught, had to train in. And this is like step 2, generalization. Mordecai did something Haman didn't like, and Haman said, all Jews are bad because Mordecai did this thing I didn't like. And that is, whether it's step 1 or 2, of developing a discriminatory and possibly genocidal plan
Right.
against a group of people.
Right. I think it was Larry's translation that used the word genocidal also, right? That it seems much bigger than just one entity, that now it's really going against anybody who fits this category. Diane and then Stevie.
So two things. One is it feels unmotivated. If you're writing a novel,
Right.
this isn't about discrimination. This is about jumping from this horrible thing that Mordecai did off with his head. No, this horrible thing Mordecai did, but I don't want to just kill him.
Right.
I want to kill all the people.
Right.
And the other thing is this phrase, I'm Mordecai.
Yes.
Which feels very bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it also feels like he's blaming, right? That Haman is somehow saying, like, these are your people, right? There, it's not just I know of your people, but it's really I'm now targeting you as the person kind of responsible for this for this nation, whether or not that's founded, right? That seems to be what he's doing. Okay, Stevie.
So I'm going to suggest something different.
Okay,
There's a scene in one of the Batman movies where they're ordering some, part of his, outfit, weapons, whatever it is.
Uh-huh.
And they realize that in order to not raise suspicion, they need to produce 10,000 of them. Because if they just make one, people figure out what's going on.
Uh-huh.
Right? I think that Haman is trying to, do group punishment, not like as a matter of trying to make himself not look as petty. Right? He is, great grand vizier or whatever. Everyone's bowing down to him. He's not, it would be small of him to call out the one person who isn't. But if he can, punish an entire nation, that makes him even more powerful.
That is definitely a different take. It's very possible. I don't know. I mean, based off of the verse before, I don't know why he would be so afraid of just pointing out the one guy who's bringing him rage. But I don't know the scene that you're talking about from the movie, so it's possible that would help me. But I mean, in terms of the generality of this statement, I was going to say in general, but, in its entirety makes it seem as though he's not just trying to target Mordecai. But the one thing that I would question is that he seems to be filled with disdain, to go back to Larry's point, which doesn't make any sense, about not being able to just lay hands on Mordecai. So it seems like because
it's the prospect of laying hands on only Mordecai, right? He hates what that would do to his image. That's what the verse says.
Or
possibly.
Yeah. Norm.
Haman has been told that Mordecai won't bow down to him, and that is connected with the fact that he is a Jew and won't bow down
Correct.
to idols. And so for that reason, he may feel like he should extrapolate from Mordecai to the entire Jewish people. It's kind of like if a nation says, we don't do genocide, we're against genocide. But the person who runs their police and sits in their cabinet calls for genocide repeatedly and is not disciplined, is not removed. It's easy to understand why some people think that people actually does pursue genocide. Not to identify anyway.
Rachel.
That the cheering section, that if Haman feels like Mordecai, in a leadership role of Jews in the kingdom, or at least in the city, are going to motivate the other Jews in the city to kind of create resistance, as it were, to the power of Haman, that might be a motivation for Haman to try to crush more than just Mordechai, that he would not then serve as a model or an example to other Jews.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's exactly what we're dealing with here. I think to go back to Larry's point, then why the beginning of this verse, right? That seems very clear, but then why have the beginning of this verse be necessary or said at all when that wouldn't be part of the plan, so to speak, right? Just the second part of this would be. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. Okay, Larry, and then Rick. Oh, you have.
I'm going to go back again.
Okay.
When in doing our analysis of the text and our commentary, we do two things. Sometimes we're just pulling from the text to try to understand what we think is the coherent message inside. And then other times we're bringing our own baggage, our own view of the world, and we're dumping on this. And this verse is great because we do both. So we're trying to understand what's going on. And I could argue that the last two words, Am Mordechai, support my view that Haman was trying to punish Mordechai by getting his people, his family. And that may be true.
Yeah.
But there's something else that resonates with me, and it has to do with an interview I listened to yesterday with Dana Horn.
Yeah.
It's the
Dara.
Seymour, Dan Seymour's
Dara Horn, Dan Seymour. Yeah.
And she was talking about anti-Semitism. She was talking about the Jewish people and the origins of anti-Semitism. I'm wondering, especially when I see Mordechai and all that, do we have any evidence that there was any hatred of Bnei Israel, Israelites, Judeans, up until this point? I think, I may be wrong, in the Bible, we're not told that the Babylonians and Nebuchadnezzar hated the Jews. You might say Amalek did, but type of thing. In fact, that makes my point, because Amalek is Amalek in the connection to Haman. Yeah, those were the Jew haters. So there was there's no evidence for this that I can see here. Maybe there was Jew hatred, Judean hatred that already existed. And Haman is just tapping into that for his own purposes.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be an interesting exercise to go back and see the different words that are used from our quote enemies, right? From people who tried to either attack us or were persecuting different tribes that now are considered Jews. I don't know off the top of my head what those words are. In terms of qualifying, right here, the word disdain is being used. I don't know that word is used anywhere else. But the link, right, and I'm sure Dara had something to say about this, the generational link, right, that if we do believe that Haman came from Amalek, that we might see in his actions and in his quick to anger notion of Mordechai, right, of the Yehudim is really fascinating because of where he might come from, what he might have been taught, what others might have said to him, etc. Right, and then maybe it does work against these words Mordechai for us to understand that it wasn't just Mordechai the Jew, but rather this whole nation that Mordechai came from that he knew to already hate even before Mordechai did something to make him angry. Yeah. Okay, Rick, and then Diane, and then Rebecca.
Hi.
Hi.
So some trope observations. Well, first of all, Vayar Haman was the way the last sentence started. So that's the first time we have Haman doing an action kind of work, right? It's the first time he does something. So he sees it's pretty innocuous. There's no positive or negative to it. That's verse 5. Verse 6, when he uses his eyes, it's very negative, right? So the Ene, I heard what you said, but the Ene, we were in their eyes, or in our eyes, we were like grasshoppers, right? The Ene it's all the perception, right? So Haman takes a possibly normal situation and makes it totally negative.
Right.
So Vayives Be'enav, there's a reveal there, the diamond, The same thing, the next time he has an action word, Vayivakesh Haman, the same trope, when he's deciding to do bad stuff. So that, and then the Am Mordechai is the highlight of the middle of the sentence that gets the et nachta. It's the highlight of the ending of the sentence. So it's all about, last sentence, the spotlight was on Mordechai and Haman. They had the same trope. What are they going to do? And now the highlight is on Mordechai.
Yeah.
What are they going to do?
Great. I thought you were going to say that it's a Ravi because he's going to hang, and so it's going to bring him down.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't go there.
There's a directional thing too.
Okay, Diane and then Rebecca.
Okay, so this is in response to what Larry said.
Yeah.
So this is going back to Mordechai's refusal to bow down. So one of the things that I haven't listened to the Dara Horn interview yet, but just a little bit of it. And there's this confusion between Jews as a people and Jews as a religion.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Right. So later rabbinic sources presume religious motivation, this whole bit about a pagan symbol.
Yeah.
As Mordechai's refusal to bow down.
Yeah.
Although symbol jealousy cannot be ruled out. However, the refusal might have been derived from its ethnic Jewishness. This could reflect competition between ethnic minority groups or eternal enmity between the Jews and the Amalekites. This last concern could possibly explain Haman's determination to kill all the Jews.
There you go. Yeah.
And not the anti-Semitism which would arise a little later. So I'm not quite sure this distinction between ethnic hatred and anti-Semitism. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means.
Well, I would have to look more into the way that Benjamin Siegel's particularly defining it, because I think he's probably, is it him specifically, or is he quoting someone else?
Is there a footnote?
A footnote.
I'll go look.
Okay, well, whoever it is, it's possible that what they are, it's a similar, I think, conversation that we're hearing today of, like, if someone says that they are anti-Zionist, does that mean that they are against Jews, or does that mean that they're against the government, or does that mean that they're against Israel? Like, how are we splitting hairs here in terms of the Benji Siegel comment of, right, like, what does it mean to hate an ethnicity versus the anti-Semitism that comes later, right? Is it being defined differently? So I would just have to look in to see how they're defining those things. But my guess is that it's similar, if not exactly the same. Again, I wouldn't know without looking into it, as how we are defining those words today and how they are being used by different people to mean different things in order to, make whoever's point is trying to be made.
Can I send a link to the
For Darren Horn? Yeah, we're actually trying to, we're actually trying to get Dara Horn here in November. So you're welcome to send it. And yeah, I heard her at that conference. Rabbi Klickfeld mentioned in his email, actually, that she was one of the plenary speakers. So she alluded to her new book a little bit, but she mostly just talked about her definitions, which you just alluded to as well. Yeah.
I'd gotten an email from some list, it doesn't matter, about she's developing an educational program on Jewish peoplehood.
Correct, yeah.
And I think that's so critical in terms of this sense of legitimacy
100%.
of Israel.
Yeah, 100%.
I was very moved by her book, People Love Dead Jews.
Yes.
I found that very powerful.
Yeah.
I haven't read the new one, but Larry, please do send out the link for the recording you're talking about.
Okay, Diane, and then we'll.
So this is the footnote.
Yeah,
it's from Ginden.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know who that is.
I also do.
Okay. Theorizes a historical reference. Mordecai is a Benjaminite, and all of Jacob's 12 sons. Only Benjamin did not bow down to Esau, the grandfather of Amalek, since he had not yet been born.
That makes it easy to not bow down. Yeah. Okay. Well, interesting. Well, we can go more into that. Yeah, Rebecca.
So I was just thinking about how what the text does not say is about the Jewish people following Mordecai as an example and also not bowing down. So the implication is that they bowed down, and this is really just Mordecai alone who resisted.
That's really interesting.
In the past, God, in particular, didn't tolerate idol worship.
Right.
People, the Jews worshiping idols and other gods. So this is particularly interesting that if the people are going that route, what's going to happen? But in this case, we'll see that it's really not God, but Haman who is planning to punish them,
when we need him? Yeah.
Planning to punish them.
Right.
And then it's also not God really who's rescuing them. It's Mordecai and Esther who are the heroes to rescue them. So it's interesting, though, that the people aren't, there's no mention of them following suit and not bowing down.
Yeah, that's a really, I hadn't even thought about that. It's a very, and again, this is where when you know a whole story and then you go back and read it line for line, it's hard to pick up on stuff that from later on. But Rebecca, that's such a brilliant point that it's not even mentioned here that all the Jews didn't bow, right? It's only mentioned from verses before that Mordecai didn't bow, and now all of a sudden it's all the Jews' problem and it doesn't even, oh yeah, it does, sorry. It's all the Jews' problem, right? And it's this national identity almost, even though we actually don't know that the rest of the Jews didn't bow down. We just know that Mordecai didn't bow down, but he's becoming this symbol, whether it's because of the comments that Larry and Diane have shared with us, or it's just because that is how Haman is thinking of him. Well, if he's not doing it, then clearly no one else is doing it. I will also just remind us that in the verse right before, he only saw that Haman didn't do it. So he might be just inferring or assuming that if he didn't do it, the Mordecai didn't do it. What'd I say? Oh, yeah, sorry. That Haman saw is what I meant. Mordecai not bow down. Sorry. So
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yes, I'm drunk at 9:08 a.m. But yeah, the idea here, that's not true. I'm not. Just want to put that on record. But yeah, I mean, from the verse right before, that the fact that Haman only saw Mordecai bow down, now and I think this goes back to this idea that it's getting more and more intense and involved, that we're taking this one guy who didn't bow down, and now all of a sudden we're assuming because he's a leader in Haman's eyes of the Jewish people, well, that must mean that the rest of them are not bowing down, and so now I'm going to be angry. Okay, Leonard and then Larry.
Okay, so I got two things here.
Right.
Cincino says, on this verse, the insight into the psychology of Jew hatred in this verse is remarkable. How often is a personal grievance or grudge, imagined or real, against a single Jew the occasion of attacks against the whole Jewish people? Yeah, great. So not great, but yes. Yeah, and I think that goes back to one of the original statements that Larry made, right? That this is what makes it so intense, that it goes from one individual to now you're thinking that way about an entire people. Okay, and the other thing is, there's a comment in this book.
Yeah.
And I don't understand it. It's only 2 sentences. Maybe you can help me out here.
Okay.
I'll read it. I'll read the Hebrew and tell you what I think it says.
Okay.
So this is on by Nibaz. Now this is this book who, I don't know who it is. Okay. Okay, Vayibaz ba'inav. Hadavar be'inav chaser erech. Okay, so the thing in his eyes, in Haman's eyes, I presume, is not important.
Okay.
Okay. Vayibaz ba kan kemuvan poel omed, which apparently means vayibaz here is used as an intransitive verb. So what are they talking about?
Can I see it? I actually don't. Is there an English translation or is it just Hebrew?
It's just
Oh yeah, so can I see it? It'll just be easier for me to see than to hear.
It wasn't disdainful of something, he was just disdainful. He was just not.
The Einav is important, or else why would they have the
Vayibaz, I think.
I'm trying to interpret what I read.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do think it's trying to describe something grammatical about the word being used here, but I don't know if it's well, it goes on. You do go as oh no, that's
a different. Trying to rationalize why, because he has the same problem.
Vayibaz ba'akan. So Vayibaz is brought here, bemuvan po'al omed, as a way of understanding.
According to Google Translate, that means intransitive.
Oh, that I don't know. I don't know. I'm happy to look it up, but I don't know just on one foot.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I also wonder who this is.
Apparently, the book is used in school in Israel.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, right. Yeah, of course.
So in response both to Rebecca and Leonard's first point.
Yeah.
So in the as yet unwritten midrash.
Yeah.
What happens is Mordechai doesn't bow, and half the Jews say to him, "What the hell are you doing? You're getting us in trouble. Shut up! Stop doing that."
Right.
And the other half are saying, "No, you should do that." And now I'm applying it to today. And half the Jews are saying,
right.
God, I wish Israel would stop doing this policy because it's really making it hard for the world to solve this anti-Semitism because of Israel. And the other half are saying, what are you talking about? Israel's defending itself. And even if you have a few problems with it, that doesn't excuse anti-Semitism. So when I say to you, we fill the verse with what we feel, we're feeling, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that the people, Mordechai's people, are really conflicted about what he should do.
Yeah. Well, and I can't wait for this midrash to be published one day. But but also if you look at the graphic, not for those of you who have it, if you look at the graphic novel, it's very clear that there is something about whether all the Jews or not all the Jews are being persuaded. That's not really the right word, but like divided up and therefore kind of going in a different track based off of their thoughts. The reason that I see that in these illustrations is that there seem to be Jews standing behind him in one block here. Do you see that, Larry?
Yeah.
And then on the other one, they seem to be standing against him, right? Like towards Haman. Do you see that?
Yeah.
So I don't know. It could be that we're seeing this divided notion, and then Haman has this illustration of graves with Jewish stars on it as a way of showing it. But yeah, I think first of all, I think that there is something very powerful. Midrash aside, I think there's something very powerful about this verse taking us from a single person to Mordechai. Right? It's no longer just a dude. It's now a person who is standing for something that is either dividing up a people or is at least representing a people, whether or not they feel represented. Right? It's very possible they don't. Norm.
Alshich suggests that at some point Haman removed the idol symbol from his outfit.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, Mordechai refused to bow down to him.
Uh-huh.
And it seems to me that may have been an error on the part of Mordechai because if the reason he wouldn't do it was because he didn't want to be engaging in idolatry, when the idolatry nature of the bowing was eliminated, he should have been willing to acknowledge Haman.
Interesting. I mean, I think most, even without that midrash, I think most people would say you're just not supposed to bow down to anything, right? We bow down towards God. We're not supposed to bow down towards people either. So it is interesting that without the amulet, that somehow, it could have been easier for people to understand, especially if it was to save his life, that he could bow down. But I think if we go back to the Torah and the Ten Commandments, I think we would see that it doesn't behoove us as Jews to bow down to anything or anyone, which is why I think Diane brought up the point about who was it Joe Lieberman? No, who was it who met someone and didn't know if they should bow down or not? Oh, it was Obama. Okay, not a Jew. And the Queen of England. Okay.
Yeah. People bow down.
Yeah, no, there are lots of instances where people bow down, but I just to Norm's point in terms of the taking off of the idol, like it still seems to me that it's not ideal to be bowing down. Yes, there are times in which, and that's why I said if it was to save his life, Judaism would say, of course you should, right? So there's definitely instances where it does come up. Okay, Rick and then Rachel, and then maybe we'll go to the next verse. Okay, great. Rick.
Just an observation at the very beginning. The only time religion is brought up is when they introduce Mordechai, right? In verse 5, chapter 2. And it starts Ish Yehudi. So the English doesn't even do it justice. It should have started, a Jewish man was in the capital, but it goes the other way. It goes here in the fortress Shushan. So the highlight, the main dynamic, the main story is you got this Jew living amongst all these non-Jews. What's going to happen to him? And so it's like a Jewish-centric viewpoint. And that's the only religion that gets it because it's our story. But I just thought I'd highlight that again, that he's the only one described by his religion. Achashverosh, we don't find out what his religion is. Nobody else, not Haman, nobody. But it's Mordechai. So that's the main thing. How is this Jew going to interact with what's supposed to go on? So.
Who did I call on next? Rachel and then Larry, and then we'll do verse 7.
The image that Norm referred to with Haman wearing some sort of idol.
Yeah.
That's all midrash.
Correct.
And it's not like we can't latch on to midrash. Sure. It's just that's one view, but not the only view.
Exactly. Yeah.
I much prefer the idea that we don't bow down to other people, especially the most arrogant ones.
Right. Okay, Larry, here you go.
Briefly, Rick, this is not a criticism, an observation. You immediately associated Yehudi with religion. The whole point that Dara is making, Dara Horn is making, is this is a recent phenomenon. Up until the modern times, to be a Jew was not a religion. It was a people. And she even talks about it being an Am. Now, the people had their religion, just like all the people in those days had their religion, whether it was Zoroastrianism or whatever it happens to be. But if you were reading the verse that said, and Mordechai was an Arab, you wouldn't say, you see, this is a religion. It's talking about Islam. I know it's not that the time doesn't work out. Or it said, was a Frenchman, you wouldn't say, oh, it's a Catholic, because all the French are Catholic. So she's making the point that in the case like this, you should read, again, she would say, you shouldn't read that he's a Yehudi as a religion. It's he's a Yehudi, that's his peoplehood. Separate religion completely.
Yeah. Okay. Does it have to do with the verse or with Judaism?
It has to do with where you just said.
Okay. Very quickly, and then we're going to go back to the Megillah.
So I don't know if anybody here noticed, but in the news, there was a proposal, I don't know if it actually passed or not, but in the California state legislature to add Jewish as an ethnicity,
right, yeah,
as opposed to religion,
yeah,
which is sort of what you're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, Stevie.
I'm just going to say that in, all the medieval halachic authorities agree that bowing down to a king is a perfectly acceptable thing to do, and not just out of fear. Like, the Jews do bow down, and they struggle greatly with what is going on with Mordecai. And that's probably why these sorts of midrashim exist, because, it would normatively be acceptable to bow down.
Okay, let's go to the 7th verse. Someone want to read it? We just need, whoever's going to read it needs a microphone.
B'chodesh harishon hu chodesh Nisan, b'shnas 12 lamelech Achashverosh. Hipil pur hu hagoro lifnei Haman miyom liyom u'michodesh l'chodesh 12 hu chodesh Adar.
Okay. Great. Translate for us, please.
In the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus.
Oh, we start again? I'm sorry.
He said in the first month.
I said in the first month, Nisan. In the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, Pur was cast before Haman concerning every day and every month until it fell on the 12th month, the month Adar.
Okay. Thoughts? Yeah, Rachel.
Thank you. That the text jumps from Haman hating all the Jews.
Yeah.
First, Haman hates Mordecai or is angry with Mordecai.
Right.
Then the text jumps to Haman generalizing that to, because I hate Mordecai, I want to kill all the Jews. And now we've jumped to the question of when should I kill all the Jews?
Well, and we don't even know that that's what it's for.
It just seems there's an element of absurd.
Yeah, so the way that you just described the lot, the poor, right, is not we don't know that from this verse. We don't know what the poor is for, and in fact, Rashi will describe it completely differently. But you are correct that this comes out of nowhere. It is a very random verse, and if anything, you would think that it would not come in the middle of such a heated moment. It's almost like a narration to the side so that you know where we're at, but it's really random and very bizarrely written in terms of the timing. It's very hard to follow along with when and what was happening. Rashi will allude to this in just a second, but it also seems like the sentences are not complete. Right, so Bechodesh Harishon Chodesh Nisan Bishnat 12 Lamelech Achashverosh Hipil Pur Hu Hagaral Lifnei Haman. Like what? Huh? How many sentences are there in that one expression? It seems like we're being given a time, and then a thing happened. We actually don't know from this verse what that thing is or why, and then we go back to the timing again. So it seems very, very confusing in terms of its syntax, and also just the question of why here and now seems to be very interesting. And again, Rachel, to your point of whether if this is a poor being taken to kill the Jews, we don't know that. So that it's even more bizarre if we don't know what this poor is for. It's a completely random verse to be in this spot. Yeah, Diane. Wait, Rebecca, can you give Diane the microphone? Thank you.
So this is some historical background.
Okay.
Lotteries were employed by many ancient peoples, including Persians and Israelites. Presumably, Haman sought a propitious date. The lottery might not have been specific to the issue at hand, but a clarification of general good and bad days of the year. Earlier in Babylonia, fates were determined at the new year, in the month of Nisan. Possibly a full year's lottery took place, and the 13th of Adar was noted as a favorable day for this mass slaughter. The lots were cubes, which were allowed to fall. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Like what we do with a lottery.
Right.
Where do you get the 13?
It's not here. This is just sort of right.
No, she's just reading the historical.
Lotteries in the ancient world.
Someone else had a hand. Was it Norm? Yeah.
It occurs to me that a principal function of this line is to give us a name for the holiday.
But why here?
Somebody said, gee, we've already introduced Haman. Some editor said, you got to do something about the name of this holiday.
Someone was putting a cover on a book and decided, maybe we should have a reason for the name.
And we don't know who actually did the casting of lots. Recently, it's subsequently Haman.
Right.
But the Malbim writes, Haman would always cast lots to determine his course of action. He wanted to take revenge against the Jews immediately, and he cast lots for the very next day, Nisan 14. But that day proved inauspicious. It is, after all, Pesach. So he cast lots for every successive day and month until the 13th of Adar. He should have realized from this that God's will was to allow the Jews time to be redeemed. And therefore it says, Lifnei Haman, literally before Haman, i.e. that the lot was prepared before Haman rather than for the Jews, and that it would result in his destruction.
Wait, read the Passover part again? What is that?
The Passover part was my comment.
The
next day would have been the 14th of Nisan.
Right.
Obviously, God is not going to allow the destruction of the Jews.
Right, on Passover.
On Passover.
Yeah, that would seem antithetical to the Passover story. Yeah. Great, thank you, Leonard.
So this is just following on to what Diane said. But poor is a lot, as we know. Originally meant a stone for casting lots, and it was borrowed from Akkadian, which in turn was probably born from Sumerian. But in our verse, it says this is the same thing as Goral. So what is that? What the heck? It looks like a Goral. Yeah. And it says, lot, portion, fortune. The original meaning of Goral was probably a small stone, pebble, or a small stone for casting lots, hence related to Arabic and blah, blah, blah. But what's interesting is that they say here that the English word coral, English word coral is probably formed from this root through Greek.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, let's look at the Rashis. I'm just noticing the time. So let's just look at the Rashis. And then we'll go till 9:35 just to give a few extra minutes.
Hepil Pur. Hepil Misha Hepil Velo Piresh Mi Umikra Katzer Hu. A Pur was cast. Whoever cast. The verse does not specify who. This is an abbreviated verse.
Great. Okay. So this was not the area that I was referring to when I said that it's not full sentences. But it's Rashi is pointing out the same thing, that the words don't seem to finish a full sentence. We seem to get a piece of information and then we go on to the next piece of information, but there's no explanation for that piece of information. Then we go on to the next piece of information. And then someone said, we don't actually know who's casting the lots, which is exactly what Rashi is pointing out, right? We're having a pronoun problem. We don't know what's happening here. We don't know who that is. We don't know why it is. I mean, to Norm's point, it is where we get the name of the holiday, but who cares at this point, right? We have no idea why this is happening. And until we read on, it doesn't even make any sense until a little bit later, right? We don't have a sense of why this came from the verse before, for sure. Yeah, Rick?
Well, it said he plotted to do away Vayivakesh, right? So what is the plot? This is the beginning of the plot. So
possibly, but we don't know that that's what the lot is for. Right? We don't know that that's what the poor is for, which is, I think, where Rashi gets this point that it's not, that it's abbreviated, right, or cut short or whatever, that it's not a full thought, because that is the natural thing for us to imagine, especially because we know the rest of the story. That's the natural way for us to imagine that that's what the poor was for, but we actually don't know. We don't know that that's what it meant. Yeah, no.
The Vilna Gaon says that he was looking for the day that would be most lucky for him.
Right.
He was not trying to find a day that would be bad luck for the Jews, because the Jews are not governed by the stars and astrology and what have you.
But, yeah, I guess.
That's according to the Vilna Gaon.
Right. And again, the Vilna Gaon was, great guy, but he also didn't know, right? So I think we're all just trying to come up with why is this here and what could it possibly mean? But read the next Rashi, because I think that it's gonna, the next two Rashis, because I think they're gonna point to that exact.
Hagoro, Hakasuv, Miforesh, Umahu, Hapurhu Hagoro, Hipil Hagoro, Be'eze Chodesh Yatzliach. Scripture explains what is poor, that is the lot. He cast lots to determine in which month he would succeed.
So, I mean, again, who's the he, right? We can infer who the he is from the story that we know, but it doesn't actually say who the he is. But it's now explaining to us that at least this is a way in which there was counting going on for us to understand the succession plan. The next Rashi is exactly the same. Yeah, Rick.
So besides being a satire and all sorts of things, drunken kings and how things play out, it's also a satire against people who try to predict the future, right? He's trying to get the best day, and it's the day he's going to die. So it's like totally wrong. Just don't bet on the horses that day. It's not a good day. Even if you think you can do that, you can't.
Right. Well, and it is, and this goes back to Norm's point of we just needed to know what the name of the story was going to be. Right. There are lots of ways in which we can read through Megillat Esther and think, oh, this is reminding us not to bow down to idols. This is reminding us not to believe in, what are they called? But the other word in the Torah that they use, that I think is such a funny word. No, what? No. Anyway, whatever, it'll come to me. And right, there's lots of ways in which, and again, Barry's not here to bring God into the conversation, but there's lots of ways in which without it feeling like a Torah text around God as a character, we end up inferring all of these different, whether it's mitzvot or halachot or whatever, into the text that we're reading as a way of saying, see, this didn't work out so well, so let's make sure that we remember that from this story as well. Okay, Rebecca, last word, and then we're going to leave the next verse for next week.
I was also going to say, again, point out that this lot is being pulled in the first month. Yeah. And it landed on the 12th month. So this is going to be 12 whole months that it's going to take to reach this, the designated day. Yeah, that's that's true. Quite a ways away.
That's true.
Someone's gonna have to wait.
That's true. Yeah. That's a good point.
Hey, I want to finish the last question.
Do you want to read it?
It's so quick. No,
it's just the same as what the other one says.
Okay. Oh, so we're done.
Yeah. It's just saying that Miyom Leon means the same thing as what he explained before, which means that it would be the day that he succeeds, or the month, that he would succeed.
So picture in your head of the television lottery, it doesn't matter who's doing it. There's
That's true.
This
big wheel.
And the lots are
That's a good point. It doesn't matter who's doing it, because it's just the person pulling the wheel to decide who's going to actually, right, in our case, win the thing, not lose.
Can I just mention that Alter says about the 13th day.
Yeah.
You mentioned.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, Adar corresponds approximately to March, placing Purim around the same time as Mardi Gras and other carnival festivals, marking the end of the winter. It's worth thinking about, but I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah.
No day is given in this verse, the one version of the Septuagint shows, quote, on the 13th day of the month, end quote, and that phrase may have been dropped out through an error in tribal transcription.
Oh, interesting.
This gives some support, and I don't know anything about the Septuagint, but it's pretty clear from not just here, but from other things. There were variations.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe scraps of papers here
right.
and there.
The Kativ Cree from last class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this.
We're reading a version.
Yeah, we're reading a version, and sometimes it's a version that people sort of just put together.
Yeah. Maybe Norm's right. Maybe this is just reminding us of the name of the book. In a random spot.
Diane mentioned once in this class or elsewhere, there's a story that Isaac Bashevis Singer wrote about the errant line. There was a line that he just it was inserted into something that he wrote.
Interesting.
And he couldn't figure out where it came. I don't remember the story, but he couldn't figure out where did this come from.
Wow. All right. I will see you all next week. Sorry for the mix up with the link people on Zoom. But I will see you all next Monday. Thanks for learning.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast website or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information on Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, please visit www.tbala.org.